Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going straight into some really fascinating public opinion data coming out of Thailand. We're zeroing in on a recent poll. It's from NIDA poll. That's the National Institute of Development Administration.
Right, a well-known source.
Exactly. And our source material for this deep dive, it's the official results page for their survey called Dare to Seize Interior and Agriculture and the Case of the 14th Floor Issue. Quite a title.
It certainly signals the topics.
It does. So our mission today, really unpack these findings. We want to get a sense of what was top of mind for the Thai public back in early June 2028, on some very specific and, let's be frank, politically sensitive questions.
That's right. And this poll gives us a great snapshot. It was conducted between June 3rd and 5th, 2028, with the results published just after, on June 8th.
Pretty timely then.
Very timely. And NIDA poll, as you said, they're seen as a pretty significant survey center in Thailand. So looking at their data, it's a valuable way to sort of gauge the national pulse on issues like these.
Okay, let's really dig in then. Before we get to the actual results, maybe tell us a bit about who they talked to. Who was surveyed here?
Sure. So they surveyed 300 and 310 people, all adults, 18 or older.
Okay.
And the sample was designed carefully. They used multi-stage sampling, did it via telephone interviews. The goal was to be representative, covering different regions, education levels, jobs, income brackets right across Thailand.
So a good cross-section.
Exactly. And they report a high confidence level, 97%, with a margin of error not more than 0.05. So statistically speaking, it's pretty solid ground for our discussion.
Got it. A solid basis. Good to know. Now, the first big thing this poll tackled.
Yeah.
It's this 14th floor at police hospital case. It involves former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra.
A very high-profile issue.
Right. And for listeners maybe not following every detail, this case relates to the circumstances around his medical stay at the hospital after he returned to Thailand. It became a real point of public and political discussion.
A huge point, yeah.
So the poll asked directly, how much will this specific case impact the survival of the current government? That's the one led by Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra. What did people say?
Well, the numbers show a really notable split in how people saw the political weight of this. You had a combined majority, actually over 58%, who felt it would have some level of impact on the government's survival.
Over 58%, so more than half.
Yes. Broken down, it was 29.62% saying it would impact a lot, and another 29.31% saying quite a bit.
Okay, so yeah, clearly politically significant for a lot of respondents.
Precisely. But, and this is the interesting part, on the other side, you had nearly a quarter, 24.58%, saying it would not impact at all.
Wow, quite a contrast.
And another 15.73% felt it would not impact much. Only a tiny fraction, 0.76%, had no answer or weren't interested.
This is where it gets really interesting, I think. Over 58% see an impact, but then you've got, almost 40% seeing little or none? What does that division tell us, about how people were processing this controversy versus the government's overall stability back then?
Yeah, that split is really telling. It suggests that, well, while the 14th floor case clearly hit a political nerve for a lot of people, linking it to the government's future, another pretty big chunk of the public either didn't see that direct link, or maybe they just thought the government was stable enough to handle this particular storm.
Right, not necessarily a fatal blow in their eyes.
Exactly. It shows public opinion wasn't, all one way. People were interpreting the potential fallout quite differently.
Fascinating stuff. So it wasn't just the case itself, but the political read on its consequences. Okay, following that, the poll then looked at a specific related event, a medical council meeting. It was scheduled for June 12th, 2028.
Right.
And this meeting was apparently going to discuss possible disciplinary action against 3 doctors connected to this whole 14th floor situation.
Yes, that was the context.
So the poll asked people, how important do you think the outcome of that meeting will be for the political situation moving forward? What was the verdict there?
Well, again, a majority saw it as politically important, over 60%, in fact.
Over 60%.
Yeah, 34.27% said it was quite important, and another pretty substantial chunk, 26.72%, called it very important.
That seems really significant. Over 60% thinking a medical regulatory body's decision is politically important. That's a strong connection the public is making there.
It absolutely is, and only 21.37% thought it was not very important, and 16.11% not important at all. A small group, 1.53%. Undecided.
So what's fascinating, like you said, is how closely people tied the actions of this professional body, the medical council, straight to the wider political scene.
It really underscores that in this situation, Public attention wasn't just on the politicians. It extended to the institutions, sort of circling the case.
Right, which naturally brings us to the next point the poll covered, public confidence in the medical council itself. Specifically, how confident were people in its ability to regulate doctors ethically? Presumably, this was asked with this high-profile case hanging in the air.
Yes, and this is where the sentiment shifts a bit compared to the importance question. Here, a majority, actually over 54%, expressed some level of lack of confidence.
Lack of confidence.
Okay. 38.40% said they were not very confident,
Right.
and another 15.95% went further, saying not confident at all.
Wow. So a majority expressing sort of doubts about the council's ethical oversight, at least in this context. What might that suggest, about public trust when an institution like this gets tangled up in politically charged issues?
Well, it certainly raises questions about how the public perceives institutional independence, maybe integrity, especially when a body gets put under such a bright political spotlight.
Yeah.
That majority lack of confidence, it could suggest some public skepticism about whether the council could act purely on professional ethics, when dealing with the pressures around a case involving a former PM.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've covered the controversy, the related institutions' perceived role and trustworthiness. Now, the poll kind of shifts gears completely, right? It moves from looking back at the case and its effects to looking forward, speculating about potential political moves within the government coalition itself.
Exactly. Cabinet positions.
Yeah, specifically asking if PM Pattongtarn Shinawatra would dare, that's the word they use, to take certain ministries currently held by coalition partners. First one, taking the Ministry of Interior from the Bumjatai party.
And on this, public feeling was overwhelmingly skeptical. A very large majority, over 66%, just did not believe this would happen.
Over 2/3, okay.
Yeah, 34.12% said they don't believe it all, and another 32.06% said they don't really believe it. Only 18.24% quite believed it, and 13.82% believed it a lot.
That's a pretty strong signal of disbelief. And just for context, why is the Interior Ministry usually seen as such a big deal, such a powerful portfolio in Thai politics?
Well, Interior it's hugely significant. It oversees all the provincial administration, local government.
Right.
It has this vast network of people across the country.
Right.
It holds, considerable influence, control over resources, patronage networks. It's always a key prize in any coalition.
Understood. So the public, by and large, didn't see the current PM making a grab for that specific powerful ministry. What about the second question on cabinet shifts, daring to take the Ministry of Agriculture and Cooperatives? That one's held by the Clatham Party.
Very similar story there. Again, a big majority expressed disbelief. Over 65% combined said they don't believe at all. That was 35.73%. Or don't really believe, 29.69%, that this would happen.
So same kind of widespread skepticism for agriculture as for interior. And agriculture, while different, it also holds a lot of sway, doesn't it? It affects a huge part of the economy.
Oh, absolutely. That ministry is crucial. You've got the massive agricultural sector of the rural economy. It manages budgets, subsidies, programs that directly hit a huge chunk of the population.
Like interior, it gives you substantial influence, political leverage.
Okay, so let's connect these last 2 points. The public seemed really skeptical about the PM making moves to take either of these key, powerful ministries from her coalition partners. What does that widespread disbelief suggest to you about how people saw the political dynamics, the strength of those partners, or maybe the limits on the PM's own power within that coalition?
Yeah, that public skepticism, it really speaks volumes, I think. It tells us how the public was perceiving the balance of power inside the coalition at that moment.
Right.
It could mean they believed that the partners like Pumjaitai and Clatham had, significant leverage, real control over their ministries.
Or maybe that trying it would be too risky.
Or that, exactly. Maybe a public understanding that trying to make such a move would be just too disruptive, potentially destabilizing for the whole arrangement. It sort of highlights a perceived limit, maybe, on the PM's ability or perhaps willingness to just unilaterally change key parts of the cabinet structure. So this one single 9-item poll from early June 2028, it gives us this really quite intricate snapshot, doesn't it?
It really does.
It shows people were wrestling with the political fallout of that specific medical legal case involving a former leader, connecting it to the current government's stability, and also thinking about the importance and trustworthiness of a related institution, the medical council.
Right, and then shifting.
And then it shifts, to reveal this real public skepticism about potential future power plays over those key ministries. It paints a picture, really, of a public that's highly tuned in both to the specific controversies and the bigger political chess game going on.
That integration is absolutely key, I agree. The poll isn't just isolated numbers. It shows how these things that might seem separate, a hospital case, a medical council meeting, cabinet rumors, they're all woven together in the public mind. They all contribute to the overall feel for the political situation at that time.
This deep dive into the NIDA poll findings has been incredibly insightful. Thanks for walking us through it.
My pleasure.
The key takeaways seem pretty clear, right? Public opinion was definitely split on the direct impact of the 14th floor issue on the government's survival.
Yes, very divided there.
But a big majority saw that related medical council meeting outcome as politically important.
Definitely.
Yet, at the same time, a majority lacked confidence in the council's ethical oversight in this particular context.
A crucial nuance, yeah.
And maybe most strikingly, the public was just overwhelmingly skeptical that the PM would or could try to seize those big ministries, interior or agriculture, from her coalition partners.
Right. That skepticism about the cabinet moves is very pronounced.
Yeah.
It all provides really valuable context for understanding that complex interplay.
Yep.
Specific events, institutions, political maneuvering, all through the public's eyes during that window in Thailand.
It certainly does. These specific, timely questions clearly resonate. So, okay, here's a final thought maybe for you, the listener, to consider based on everything we've just unpacked. Given these poll results, which link a medical controversy and a professional body's actions so tightly to government stability and predictions about power shifts, what does this suggest about just how deeply interconnected seemingly non-political institutions and the world of political power actually are in this specific context?
That's a great question to ponder.
Yeah, something to mull over.
Yeah.
How domains we might think of as separate can become so profoundly intertwined in public perception.